Hey everybody, welcome to Square Pegs. I'm Jay. Today we're talking about one of my all-time favorite consoles, the Sega Dreamcast. Now, back in the first year of the channel, I did this video, and I'm sorry that I'm subjecting you to seeing some of this, but you need to see how bad it is.
Gems that you think should be on the list as well. If so, leave them in the comment down below. Give the video a like if you enjoyed it.
It's so bad. It's embarrassing to look at, honestly, but it's also kind of funny to go back and look at Baby Jay 3 years ago trying to, you know, will his way through a hostage negotiation and make sure that he was able to get this video done. But today, I wanted to talk to you guys about the Sega Dreamcast. It is one of my all-time favorite consoles, and it's something that I go back to all the time. Today, we are looking at the 10 Sega Dreamcast games that I keep coming back to.
Here they are, the most daredevil group of daffy drivers who ever whirled their wheels in the wacky races, competing for the title.
All right, I'm going to start off with probably a bit of a weird choice for most people, but it's based on one of my favorite cartoon properties from when I was a kid, and that's Wacky Races. As a fan of kart racing games, I really love that Wacky Races exists on the Dreamcast. Now, this is nothing like the Wacky Races on the NES. This isn't a platformer at all. This is a legit racing game. You get to choose one of the teams from the Wacky Races cartoons, and you go to the different environments and you have objectives to complete as you race. It's so simple and straightforward and easy to pick up. Like, if you have ever played a kart racing game, you've got it. You know what to do. You get to choose from different weapons that are specific to your character that have different reactions in the game. The graphics look great. The controls are really good. Every car controls a little bit different. And it's just a lot of fun to play. Like, this is one that is kind of a crowd pleaser. It's not necessarily one of the best games on the Dreamcast, but it's something that if you have people that you know like kart racing games or like being able to play kind of casually competitive games, kind of like a Mario Kart, Wacky Races is the one you want to go with. It's a super fun game, and I think it looks great for what it is. I really enjoy this one. I think Wacky Races is a lot of fun.
Hey, it's time to make some crazy money. Are you ready? Here we go!
It's really hard to talk about the Dreamcast and not talk about some of the absolutely incredible arcade ports that came to the console, and one of the first ones that comes to mind for me is Crazy Taxi and Crazy Taxi 2. Now, Crazy Taxi 2 is the game I'm talking about here today because I think it does take a step beyond what was originally set out in the initial Crazy Taxi game. A few improvements added to it. You get an entirely new environment to drive around in. You're in New York City now. You actually have 8 drivers to choose from instead of 4. You can choose between the Big Apple and the Small Apple, which I think is adorable. And you're able to pick up multiple passengers now as opposed to just one at a time. And while this is a truly simplistic game and straightforward in its delivery, one of the things I really appreciate about it is the fact that it's just fun. You can't deny that it's a good time to play Crazy Taxi unless you hate racing games, and even then I'd probably argue against that because this isn't even really a racing game. You're not competing against anybody other than the clock. And in a lot of cases with arcade ports to home consoles, one of the things I like to see changed is kind of the strict adherence to arcade rules. Like, I don't necessarily need to have the experience of needing to pump quarters into a machine in order to play it and have fun, because I would rather just be able to keep playing. But the beautiful simplicity of Crazy Taxi is you need to have that experience where you're running out of time and you're constantly going against the clock, because otherwise the game would be boring. It's a fantastic game. It's fun. It's over the top. It has a killer soundtrack, and I love it. It's the game I go back to all the time.
Versus Voldo. Battle 1, fight!
Arena fighters, to me, were never my preferred style of game. I always preferred 2D, just plainer fighters like King of Fighters or Street Fighter. And I wasn't really sold on what Soul Calibur was offering the first time I experienced it. It looked great, don't get me wrong, it was gorgeous to look at, but I didn't think I was going to be able to fall into this 3D arena fighter and just be as head over heels with it as I am. Because games like Battle Arena Toshinden and Tekken that had come out before, while they were enjoyable, they weren't my preferred style. But Soul Calibur changed all of that. We had incredible character designs, fantastic weapons implementation, simplistic to play but hard to master gameplay mechanics, and just a wonderful, fast, exciting combat experience that I think a lot of games lack when they're trying to go for this kind of arena combat motif. It's something where you can just immediately knock someone out of the ring and win or you can wear them down through normal attacking and kind of more standard fighting game strategies. It looks incredible to this day. This might be the best looking game on the Sega Dreamcast. And it's just a dream to play. I have so much fun playing this one, and I go back to it all the time because of how great the characters are and how great the combat is. Soul Calibur is nearly perfect. One of the things the Dreamcast did better than a lot of consoles at the time was embrace the shooter genre. And Gunbird 2 is probably my favorite. This game is just brilliant in its design. So first off, it's a cute 'em up. It's adorable. There's really fun characters to play as here, and it just controls beautifully well on the Sega Dreamcast. One of the things I really like about this is honestly, this is Psycho at their best as far as I'm concerned. This was the first game to introduce medal chaining. So when you defeat enemies, they're going to drop medals, and where you pick them up depends on how many points you get to them, and it really all reflects on how they look on the screen. So when they're at their brightest, they're going to be worth the most. When they're at their dullest, when they're rotating and turned sideways, they're going to be worth their least. And I think that's an incredibly clever second addition to the game that a lot of people kind of overlook and ignore. Because this is a game and a genre where you're always chasing high scores, being able to make sure that you're grabbing those medals where they're going to give you the most bonus points is imperative to chasing that high score. It's a truly fun game with a wonderful style and a great sense of humor. I love Gunbird 2. If you like bullet hell shoot 'em ups, this one needs to be on your radar. I have spoken regularly about my love of Power Stone on this channel, so I'll be brief on this one, but when I first played Power Stone, it was in Rocky's Replay Arcade in Orlando, Florida, and being able to get the original Power Stone experience, the almost arcade perfect experience on my Dreamcast at home, absolutely blew my mind. This is when I first realized that arcade ports could be 100% legit what I had experienced by plunking down quarters in the arcade. This is such an exciting game, and I wish this was an IP that Capcom gave a damn about, because unfortunately it's dead. There was a lot of that on the Dreamcast, actually. A lot of Capcom intellectual properties went to the Dreamcast to die. And I really feel like if this were released today, even if this was released was just an HD upgrade, just an upscale, just kind of a remaster, if we were to get a Power Stone and Power Stone 2 remastered today, I think they would be huge hits and something that folks would just absolutely love. This has a great roster, wonderful graphics, fantastic gameplay experience, amazing vocals, wonderful music. It doesn't miss. Power Stone is one of my favorite fighters of all time and an underappreciated classic on the Dreamcast.
Hey there, Space Cats! Ulala here, coming at you from Spaceport 9. Tonight I'm investigating reports that aliens have invaded...
This is a game that grabbed me the second I saw it. I loved the look of Space Channel 5, the design of Ulala, the design of the enemies in the game, the design of the characters in the space station as you're going around. The thought of doing a news broadcast via dance and rhythm was just so ridiculously appealing to me, and when I got this game, this was actually the first Sega Dreamcast game that I ever purchased with Space Channel 5, because I so badly wanted to play this, and it didn't disappoint when I got it into the Dreamcast. It's a game that kind of sparked my love of rhythm titles to this day. Space Channel 5, Samba de Amigo, Taiko Drum Master on the PS2, Donkey Konga with the bongos on the GameCube, those were all responsible for games that continue to be obsessions to this day. Games like Rock Band, games like Guitar Hero, the Taiko Drum Master games that are still being released on the Switch. Games like that I just owe all back to my adoration of Space Channel 5. The design of the game is great, the music in the game is fantastic, it's simple to understand. It's kind of like a really fun game of Simon because you don't get direct cues on when you need to press the buttons, you have to listen for the rhythm. And it's really fun. Like, I just can't get over how easy it is to pick up and play this game, even after you haven't played it in years or you've never played it before. It's something that you can fall into almost immediately.
It's the preseason, football fans. Time to take off that suntan lotion and put on that...
There's just something about the 2K sports games on the Dreamcast that I really felt were significantly stronger than the offerings we were getting from Electronic Arts at the time. And my favorite of them, despite the fact that I am not a massive football fan and I'm a significantly bigger hockey fan, was NFL 2K2. I loved the gameplay in this game. I liked that it felt fast. It felt energetic. It felt more like what I would want to see football games to be like. Like, things just felt like they were moving at a more rapid pace than what I got in a typical NFL game, and significantly faster than what I ever experienced playing Madden. I thought the game looked great for what it was at the time, and the controls and the experience playing the game were incredibly positive. The game was logically produced. It played like you want an arcadey football game to play, but it wasn't necessarily like an NFL Blitz or anything like that, or an NFL Arcade from EA. It was just a faster, looser, more accessible, exciting NFL game. I played this a lot with my friend Rich when we would get together before Friday Night Fights back in the late 90s and early 2000s, and it was something where we really bonded together and we really enjoyed our times playing these games together. And it's something that I still go back to today. It doesn't really hold a candle now to games like, even something that released a few years later like Madden 04 or the current day experiences we're getting from the Madden series, but for its time, there wasn't anything better than NFL 2K2, and I really feel like gamers as a whole are getting a disservice from the NFL by only having one option out there, and that being the John Madden game. I think that both companies were at their best when they were pushing each other to innovate and to try to create something bigger than what they had created before. While so many people went to the Dreamcast for action games or for exciting fighting games or even sports experiences, one of the best games released on the console and one of my all-time favorite JRPGs is Skies of Arcadia. This is such an underrated classic, and I know, okay, maybe underrated isn't the right word, because I know a lot of people know this game, know how desirable it is, but I think they look at it from a collector's perspective because it is an incredibly valuable game on both the Dreamcast and the GameCube for its re-release there. But from an actual gameplay experience and from a story perspective, I would challenge you to find more engrossing and more exciting games than Skies of Arcadia. You play as Vyse and you're able to put together a party of up to 4 characters, and each character has a distinct persona, incredible abilities, a great look, a wonderful design, and the combat is so simple and straightforward that you're just familiar and you fall into it. It's all turn-based, it's all easy to understand and easy to grasp, and just a blast to play. I think this is one of the better looking JRPGs of its era when you consider the fact that this came out only a couple of years after Final Fantasy VII, and you look at how far advanced the graphical quality is on Skies of Arcadia as compared to FF7, it's night and day. The gameplay in this is one of my favorite JRPG experiences ever. I think it has an incredibly solid, just straightforward and simple design aesthetic that people are going to cling to. And the story is so easy to fall into and just enjoy that you can't really help but be hooked on Skies of Arcadia if you're an RPG fan. I love this game. It's something that I've played repeatedly. I wish I had the GameCube version to go along with the Dreamcast version, but it's one of the best games of all time, one of my absolute favorite games released of the era, and one of the best games in the history of the Sega Dreamcast. Jet Grind Radio is so good. This is legitimately probably my favorite Dreamcast game that isn't a fighting game. I have put just so many hours into this game between this release on the Dreamcast, between Jet Set Radio Future on the Xbox. It's just a series and a concept that I love. The controls in the game are spectacular. You are on magnetic-powered rollerblades, and you're going around the town of Tokyo-to, and you're tagging things with your graffiti, and you tag graffiti by pulling the left trigger and then doing button inputs with the analog stick if necessary for larger tagging objects. And, all that just sounds, kind of blasé. It doesn't really sound terribly exciting, but when you toss in the fact that it plays like an arcade experience because there's a timer going on, the over-the-top presentation of everything that's going on, the beautiful cel-shaded graphics, fantastic voice acting, this is kind of the total package as far as I'm concerned. There's so many great aspects of this title, from the physics of the skating to the different design work that goes into the tags that are in the game, to the music, to the narrator. It's just a wonderful experience and something that when I discovered it and I started playing it, it almost immediately became my favorite Sega Dreamcast game. Jet Grind Radio is miles beyond so many other games and miles beyond things that we're even playing to this day. Like, I would love to see a new Jet Grind Radio set with dual analog controls, because I think, man, that would just be just an incredible experience, especially with today's hardware. The looks and the graphical fidelity we would get from something like the Series X or the PS5 would be amazing. This is kind of the landmark gaming experience for me on the Sega Dreamcast. I know for a lot of folks, they identify really closely with Sonic Adventure. For some folks, they identify really closely with Shenmue. For me, the first game that I think of when I consider the Sega Dreamcast is Marvel vs. Capcom 2. This was my favorite arcade game. And when it was shown that we were going to be getting a home port of it, I couldn't imagine how they were going to make this something that was better than what I experienced in the arcade. And I don't necessarily think it's better, I think it's just a little bit different to make it more accessible for home consoles. The gameplay is spectacular. The character designs are great, backgrounds are wonderful, music is fantastic, but where the game really triumphs is how it unlocks things in the game to me. Being able to go into the store and purchase characters based on your performance in-game and what points you have acquired is huge. But the roster in the game, the absolutely massive list of characters that you're able to play with on both the Capcom and the Marvel side is magnificent. This introduced us to characters in the West that we had never heard of before from the Capcom side, and it brought forth some really obscure Marvel characters to make them as playable characters in the game. Like, who really thought we were ever going to be able to play as Marrow in a Marvel game? That's super cool. I love Marvel vs. Capcom 2. This is probably my most consistently played Dreamcast game. It's something that I used to play in Friday Night Fights. It's something that I still play to this day. It is my all-time favorite fighting game. There are so many positive memories wrapped up in this, and it's something that continues to play just brilliantly and beautifully well to this day. There you have it, my friends. 10 of the Sega Dreamcast games that I keep coming back to. This is one of my all-time favorite consoles. It's something I play regularly, and there's so many phenomenal games on it. This will not be the only entry on this list. Trust me, there will be more Dreamcast videos coming up in the next couple of months. Let me know in the comments down below your favorite Sega Dreamcast game. If there's anything that you think I particularly overlooked, I would love to hear what it is, because I'll be happy to check it out. There's definitely going to be more games that I need to spend more time with. Big thank you to my Patreon supporters and channel members you guys are seeing on screen right now. Hey, if you dig the work I do here, consider becoming a subscriber. It's just one click of a button down below. Till next time, folks, I've been Jay. Appreciate you spending a little bit of time with me today as I take a look at one of the greatest consoles of all time, the Sega Dreamcast. So until next time, remember to play more games, stay square, and take care. I'll talk to you soon.